All right. Good morning, afternoon, and thank you for joining our Pioneering the Future of Social Media panel, which is part of DEPT's Global Growth Marketing Week, taking place throughout the week. DEPT is a global pioneering digital agency with a 50-50 split between marketing and technology, ultimately helping brands stay ahead. Today, we will be conducting a future forward discussion about what's possible in the coming years and how brands can navigate technology to elevate themselves in the ever-evolving social media landscape. I'm Lindsay Kennedy, VP of Client Services at DEPT Marketing Creative, and I'll be your moderator today. Now let's meet our esteemed panelist. Panel, tell us briefly about yourself and describe your outlook on the future of social media in one word.
Hey everyone, Lawrence Edmondson, the founder of Eat Big Digital. Prior to that, I was the CTO over at Barbarian and at one point led the technology group over at VaynerMedia for my good friend Gary V. Eat Big Digital is a software consultancy. We work with agencies such as DEPT and sometimes work with brands directly to really bridge the gap where agencies kind of fall off in terms of not executing technology really well, or maybe it's just not in their wheelhouse to go really deep on certain technologies or build things at scale, and where IT teams or systems integrators fall off, right, where they are not really caring about the things that an agency cares about, right? So the consumer journey, the creative, the strategy. So Eat Big Digital kind of sits in the middle and kind of bridges the gap between agency and IT. My outlook on social media, I think today, going into, we're in Q4, going to holiday and being optimistic, looking at next year, I think if I could sum up my outlook in one word, it would be optimistic with all the new technologies that are out there. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Great to be here. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you to DEPT.
Amazing. Lawrence, you're so great on these panels. I'm Gianna Valentina.
And I'll pass it off to
Lindsay
Gianna, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Lindsay and Deb, for bringing us all together today. I sit in two places across the spatial web. I am the head of global partnerships at Spatial, which is a web and mobile gaming company where we give brands creative autonomy to create their own gaming channels and monetize. And I also sit as the growth officer of 3DM, which is the foundation for brands, really jumping into the interactive and immersive web these days, taking a brand's assets from 2D into Unreal Engine quality 3D, and then exporting that across omnichannel solutions. So every day of my life, I'm taking a brand from their physical presence and then transforming their products into these amazing interactive e-commerce, advertising, marketing, social media, content pieces, and of course, gaming. So for me, I would say the future of social media, as I look at it, is really about interaction and letting our consumers not just view the story, but interact and engage with these stories. And I look forward to this discussion as we kind of jump into what are the next phase of the internet is and social media is going to bring us. And I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Nina.
Sorry, let me unmute myself. Thank you for DEPT for having me. This is really exciting. I actually come from the music industry background. I have spent the last 25 years in the music industry, recently just head of marketing for Atlantic Records, as at Columbia Records and Interscope before that. So I've spent my whole career working on the front lines with artists building their brands and building their audience, mostly from scratch, or taking bigger artists and pivoting them and helping them evolve. And I think the music industry has been in a unique position because it has such an intense influence, and these artists have a big influence. And they've also been on the front line of ever-changing, finicky pop culture and the audience, and a lot of technology disruption along the way. So usually they're first in line with the type of audience that they have. Music fans and building brands is pretty relentless, and it's really hard to build loyalty and authenticity, and making sure we're really specific. So that has been my strength. And I think as we talk about building brands and social media, it's all about making sure you're authentic along the way. And that is something that I've been trained relentlessly on, but by my artists. So I am started my own marketing and brand consulting and connecting brands with artists and how to work with them and being authentic in every type of platform we have. And then the future of social media, and one word is, I think, personalization. It's all about feeling like it's personable in this vast world.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence, Fiona, Nina. I'm really excited for our discussion. And as dropped in the chat, if you have any questions that you'd like us to get to in the Q&A, please drop them in the Zoom chat and we'll get to them during our Q&A. But let's get right into the discussion. Lawrence, we'll start with you. We connected on the topic at Social Media Week back in May. And while that doesn't feel like too long ago, it could feel like a lifetime, especially when we're living in a world of generative AI. So how has social marketing evolved even in the last few months from a technology standpoint? And what's your take on AI and how it's influencing creative in the landscape of social media marketing?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll start with the latter, right? In terms of just what we've seen, since we last spoke, right? So if we kind of rewind just a little bit, even before that, exactly a year ago, so November 2022, OpenAI came out with this thing called ChatGPT, right? And it was like, wait, what is that? And then all of a sudden, I think in a matter of days, I think it was 5 days or so, it gained like 1 million users, right? Which was insane. Like, we've never seen anything grow that fast. And then 4 months after, they released GPT-4, right? So it's like every few months, there's like exponential growth, right? And the difference between 3 and 4 is crazy, right? They've made so many leaps and bounds in tuning the model. And then, fast follow right after that, Anthropic released Claude, which is another LLM. I'm going to drop a few of these acronyms in here. So an LLM is a large language model. So definitely check that out and what it means. So GPT is an LLM. Google dropped Bard. That's an LLM as well, right after that. So within the span of a year, right, you've got like, OpenAI with ChatGPT, Anthropic with Claude, which is used for generative AI, and also a lot more precise things than GPT does. And you've got Bard, right, from Google. So, and those are just the main players, right? So in the world of AI itself, there's been so much acceleration and so much early adoption that it's insane. What we've seen though is that, in terms of early adopters and who's using AI the most, it's actually being used most in marketing, surprisingly, right? There's a McKinsey report on it that shows, and also customer service, right, for chatbots and natural language processing, right? So if you're talking to like Verizon.com, chances are you're talking to a chatbot and you're able to do many things that before would require a human. So how does that relate to social media? What I've seen is that brands are trying to reach into new territories, which is great, right? If you look at what Virgin did with Jennifer Lopez, with Gen AI, that was great, right? Where they actually used Jennifer Lopez and they allowed her to create this insane campaign where J-Lo is able to invite you to a cruise personally. So you go on there, you type out like your partner's name and what you want her to invite you to, like, it's our anniversary in May, invite my wife, Christine, to a cruise. And J-Lo did that in her voice, right? So they're using this generative AI in that sense. So what I've seen is that brands are taking a lot more risks when it comes to AI because they realize it's innovate or die, right? So they're taking a lot more risks. That hasn't really permeated like all the way through on social though, right? I still see a lot of hesitation when it comes to social. So the JLo thing was done, like there was a microsite. It would have been great if you could actually do that entire experience, say on Instagram, right? So there's still a hurdle in terms of over here, you could build these great experiences with AI, but when it comes to social, it's kind of a walled off garden, right? Where you have to start, you could launch out to social, but you can't do the entire experience on social, if that makes sense for folks. So I think that's a great area. That's a space that needs improvement.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. It's kind of when you first started going off, it reminded me of like the iPhone and like when that was introduced of like such a difference between like the threes and
Yeah.
fours. And now as the tech has evolved, the updates aren't as drastic. All right, Gianna, on to you. Can you talk specifically about the opportunity for brands in gaming? And is there a relationship between traditional social media as we know it in these new immersive experiences?
Well, it's my God, I think about it. We spoke just a couple of months ago, and I'm like, how did so much change in less than 6 months? And it's been really exciting. I agree with Lawrence on the AI side. It's interesting because I think marketing is starting to trickle over to social media as brands are just experimenting with these new technologies. So, I've been very interested on the AI side where we see adaptation being really interesting, like language models and such, Firefly from Adobe. And then when I think of gaming, it's not just gaming and interaction that we're seeing. It's also the fact that brands are using more 3D models. I don't know if you guys saw the L'Oreal CGI ad that went out where there's like a giant lipstick running through the street, right? And those 3D models are now being used in our social ads. They're being used in different campaigns on Instagram and TikTok. And then brands are getting really hip to it, and they're starting to use those models in their games as well. We've been working at Spatial at least with Walmart recently, and it's been an amazing time with them because if you remember, Walmart was working on Roblox just the year before, and that was quite the announcement. And yet they were very early into the space, but they were also ahead because now here comes Walmart a year later. They've got their 3D files, they're working and testing and learning in gaming. They're building cultural and immersive narratives, and they're building community around their gaming and immersive media. And this year, it's been a slam dunk. We had an incredible game built with them called the Cultureverse, celebrating 50 years of hip hop. And then they immediately went into Roblox as well. And that efficiency for them of being able to scale their 3D assets across channels has really helped in the gaming side. What I get excited about in gaming, and I see on both the 3DM side and on the spatial side, is WebGL. Browsers these days are more powerful than ever. And we're seeing this emergence of brands being able to take a 3D asset. It's so interactive the second they turn their product from 2D to 3D. And now we have this burst of AR games that are launching. They are right from mobile. You are in a web browser. You are launching a full-fledged AR game, and you are able to take that same 3D model into your AR game, into your e-commerce pages, into your CGI videos for social media. And I really see social evolving where it's not just about watching a video anymore or kind of skimming a graphic. It's unlocking with this power of WebGL and our browsers and 5G speeds being faster than ever, being able to tell these really robust and interactive stories through games, and immersion right from TikTok, right from Instagram, right from a browser, on your mobile phone. And I think that's really exciting as brands start to think about more dynamic narratives and how they're shifting their products, into this new interactive media realm.
Thanks, Gianna. All right, this is for the crew. What are you seeing as the biggest opportunities for marketers when it comes to augmented reality in the next year? And how can AR, inclusive of web AR, help brands deliver on their marketing objectives?
I guess I'll jump in a little bit. So I think that like listening to Gianna and Lawrence, like, for if you're hitting a youth market at all or a progressive market, you have to be in it like now or 6 months ago. It is absolutely an endorsement for if the brand feels relevant, they feel on trend, if they're speaking their language. So I think that, it is an influence game as well. And it will show that you are, being relevant. Also, I think it's such a game changer because its content is relentless, and fans and audiences are insatiable about it. And it's always like, what have you done for me lately? And it's really hard to keep up. I mean, with the budgets as well. So I think this really helps as part, and think of it as your partner for keeping up with creative content and having that flow hitting all these platforms or the targeted platforms will absolutely help. Like, we joke that there's like artists have champagne dreams when the labels have seltzer budgets, like that what they want to do and what we can afford to do. And then you have to do that consistently. And it's just a non-stop game. And I think that this is helping at least the creative world as well. Make sure that we are, giving them a partner and a team to get this all done and the vision that they really want.
Yeah, I vibe with that, Nina. I think, what we're really talking about is the attention economy. We look on TikTok and, it's all about, as a brand, you're like, oh, I got them for about 60 seconds or so, and then they're leaving my brand right away. And, we're fighting, to try to capture attention in this new phase of the internet. And Nina really is spot on with that. Consumers are, especially younger consumers, they're so used to being overwhelmed by so many ads. The internet, at Spatial, we say, like, it's not surfing the web, it's all about playing the web. And as a brand, that becomes even more important, right? You have to capture attention. We know that, consumers, we're all plagued by ad blindness. So it's almost like a sense of gamification that we need to add to really everything. Everything needs to be interactive now, right? How long can I grab their attention in this attention economy and make sure that my consumers are spending anywhere, not 60 seconds. They're spending maybe, in these gaming environments, they can spend up to 9 minutes with your brand. And hopefully that fostered a new moment for the consumer to really engage and enjoy that brand and hopefully keep shopping, obviously. So I think brands and marketers have to be really smart. And Lawrence is going to go into talking about some of how AR really changes the game. But, I think what we're really all fighting for is more attention time in a very oversaturated content market. And a lot of times that is, as you think of the evolution of the web, you have to think, how am I starting now to, make my product more engaging, interactive, exciting, and break the noise on the internet? And that's not just going to be video. That's going to be essentially more gamified, as younger consumers are really longing for more interactions, customization, and more engaging experiences I think are just a little more fun when you think about shopping and commerce and social interaction.
Yeah, for sure. I think just from a pure technology standpoint, I mean, there are three things that get me excited when it comes to social. AI, first of all, mixed reality and web AR specifically is number two. But number three is social commerce, right? And not to get ahead of ourselves so I won't go too deep into social commerce, but I will just throw this out there and say it's a huge opportunity for brands, because social commerce is kind of ebbed and flowed, and in the US at least, right? It's a lot more popular and a lot more successful in China, but in other markets such as like Brazil and Mexico, right? We've seen double digits, 33% in Mexico, I believe, of folks have bought something through social, and in Brazil it's like 62%, right? But in the US and Canada, it's like lagging behind. So I definitely see an opportunity for social commerce. And I think the things that are hindering that right now is creativity and technology, right? 100%. I should be able to see something on TikTok or Instagram if it's tagged and check out, right? Just one click or maybe 2 clicks and go all the way through, right? Don't worry about inventory and all these things, but these systems are disconnected. So you can't do that today, right? So there's like certain blocks there. But back to web AR, I think with Apple releasing the Vision Pro early next year, hopefully on the heels of holiday, right? I think it's going to be a game changer for what people's expectations are, right? Snap, I think, is doing an amazing job in terms of social AR, web AR. Like, yesterday I think they released a Rolling Stones concert, right, in Snap, which was insane, or 2 days ago. And Spatial, one of the platforms that Gianna works for, is an amazing platform. Like, it's untapped, right? The potential is huge with Spatial because the fidelity is so high. But again, that's a lot of times that's happening. You have to launch out of social to launch these rich experiences, right? The challenge I think is going to be partnering with, brands partnering with your Snap and TikTok and Meta to bring those rich experiences into the platform, right? So I think, and I know Gianna knows all about that, web AR and the challenges with that. And we have some examples which I think we'll send out of some web AR activations. But essentially what web AR is, for anyone that doesn't know, is web AR allows you to experience AR from your phone in a browser. So you don't need an app, right? So you could essentially just click on a link on your phone and scan the room, and I don't know, Bruno Mars is standing over there singing a song. You know what I mean? Like, that's the power of doing it on your phone. So I could go on for days, but Gianna, I know you have a lot more experience in that field and probably a lot more to say.
Well, I just get so excited about web AR too, and it's funny, you're right. Like at 3DM, it's all about, at Spatial, it's all about creative autonomy and building your own gaming channel, sort of like a YouTube, right? It's that emergence of how much can we push a web browser to build games without having to download them. But, you have to lure them even from social media channels, right? Like there's still that connection between social media, the brand's identity, how you're engaging your consumers, and then taking them and taking your community into an interactive and immersive experience that grips them longer. But at 3DM, that's that foundational point of, all right, we have the product now in 3D. How are we going to supercharge that? And how are we going to push boundaries? And we just did this. I will drop the link for everyone here. We just did an activation with Maybelline, which is a client, across Spatial and 3DM, L'Oreal. And they have been like experimenting in 3D, early testers, they have a partnership with avatars. They've built their own like full line and collection in gaming. And then this past week, we launched in the APAC region. 3DM can take a 3D product, but also that 3D product can also be launched in AR. So we partnered with Eighth Wall, who does amazing gaming right in browser.
That's dope.
Our platform is a web engine, so it exports that Unreal Engine quality. We took that 3D product, we have a CGI video using the same 3D product, and then we have this immersive game that launches right out of, so there's a whole TikTok campaign going live right now. And right from your browser, you're in TikTok, you're clicking that and you're opening an AR game and you're like searching for the products. There's different, it's like a whole city. And, just for a moment, you might on TikTok have that 60 seconds, but now you grip them longer, right? You took them into this immersive AR game. And now it's not just taking them from that game, you're taking them into their shopping pages. So how long can you hold your consumer the second you start realizing that your product is more powerful when it's digitized? And these web browsers, just like Lauren said, if I can unlock, 10, 20 minutes with a consumer after they're on social media into an experience and then bring them. So I'm luring, right? I'm capturing the attention of my audience with something dynamic and interesting and interactive. Then I'm bringing them into this immersive, engaging experience where they're playing, they're engaged with the brand. And then after that, hopefully they fall in love with that experience. They see your product in a new light, and now they're shopping as well. So as marketers, we have to really think, how can I take my social media, but now start supercharging, across all omni channels and telling one cohesive story? And I think all marketers are trying to cut, 10 to 20% in inefficient spends, but that can lead to another, 2 to 5% of growth this year if you start looking at all of these things holistically. And like Lauren said and Nina said, looking at the power of some of this technology, whether it's AI or how browsers have really come along. So your social media is leading to a longer story, and you can start to fight back and, in this attention economy with these more holistic solutions. So we'll send you guys some case studies and hopefully you play around and enjoy them. Nina, any thoughts that you'd want to add there?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I think it's just, I think we'll maybe go in, the next question was basically like, there's just so much you can do, but I think what usually gets so overwhelming is what is the right thing to do. Lindsay, should we just slowly roll this into?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
I think
all right.
there's I think we're uncovering there's just so much that we can even just
I know.
discuss.
And
And
I think
in the
that
rabbit hole of web AR for sure. And I just think first of all, like the adoration and respect among this panel is just so touching. And I just love that y'all just have so much heart for this topic. But
yeah,
Nina,
I know.
yes,
I'm getting excited by everybody. I'm like, I think we need to block 3 hours next time. But
yes. We'll have a follow-up
but
discussion
I
I'm
think
for like a
recovering
day.
from a flu, so thank you for all of you being so gracious.
well, the first part of the next question is how technology can be intimidating for brands and people getting into it. So like, I just want to give this quick little story that when I first started in the music industry, I was working this little band, Jamiroquai, if anybody's heard of them. Traveling Without Moving was the album, and my company refused to let me give away modems as part of this big marketing campaign. I just couldn't understand it. I was like, it's just a $30 modem. And the head of the company said, Nina, you keep promoting this internet thing, and we're not going to have jobs in the future. So I feel like I'm having this vision with AI, and people are like, oh shit, like how much can we support this and enable it, and what will it mean for jobs? So, I can't believe that wasn't that long ago. I'm not 100 years old. It's kind of crazy. But B, it's happening. And when consumers are loving it and working with it, you just have to. So I think with on the music side, every day 1,200 songs are uploaded. Every day, 1,200 new songs are uploaded into the system. So, and we don't have big budgets in the music industry. So I think it's like about being as strategic as possible. And with all of these incredible options that you have, which can feel overwhelming, for me, it just comes down to know your brand. Spend the money, spend the time, have your vision board, have your timeline. Again, it's different. I'm not going as wide as possible with artists. I'm going as heavily influenced as possible. And it starts small, and you're building a real reputation and endorsement for this artist. So it is about timing of who are you trying to reach in the next 2 years, who are you trying to reach at the following level, like who's your core audience and who's going to be your cheerleaders, so it's knowing who you are, what you stand for, what your voice is, who do your audience is, being consumer obsessed. Like, what are they interested in? What are they doing? Because when TikTok came out, first it was ignored by the music industry. It just felt like it wasn't going to be a big thing. Then all these artists just felt like you had to be 14 years old and know how to dance or do some trick. So I think people just stayed away from it. But when you know your brand, you can make it work. We had an artist that was very melancholy, incredible, prolific writer. And she just went on TikTok as a humble, writer, and just started writing these songs and letting fans be a part of it. There was no song and dance. She wasn't a performer. She wasn't an engaging personality. She just wrote really good music, and it took off like wildfire. But she was exactly who she is. And I think that we have a big band who Roblox came in and we're like, we want to do all these things with you. We want to give you, people are going to have your band t-shirts, and they're doing all these things, right? Bigger is not always the right thing. The band decided not to because they were anti-guns. They don't want people wearing their shirts going around killing others. So don't also be just attracted to the shiny item if it doesn't fit your brand. That go cautiously, but don't ignore it, and make sure that you know exactly who you are and where you're going, because it's exciting for new technologies, but what are you saying at the end of it? Like, what are you actually saying at the end of this flashy creative that you're doing, and where are you leading people, and is it always on point? So that's kind of where I feel like it can get overwhelming. There's a million cool shit out there that you can do, but like, go back to the beginning and make sure that you're still staying true to your brand. And it can happen. I mean, there's like really cool artists on TikTok that are staying exactly who they are and not being swayed by what people think TikTok is. And it's working. And fans are really happy that they're on TikTok. They're like, thank you for being on here.
Awesome. And then just for the viewers, the question that Nina organically got into was really the advice that she would recommend and give to encourage exploration. And Lawrence, did you have something you wanted to respond to?
No. I agree with all that. I think it's interesting that, I come from I think the mix on this panel is really interesting because I'm tech all day, all the time. And Nina, is from the music industry. And, we've got Gianna, who's, on the very interactive, spatial, 3D side of things. So I think you've covered all the bases. But I think what's really interesting, what gets me excited about audio, for example, is that, I think audio is such an underrated commodity, and maybe commodity is not the right word, but I think audio is so underrated when it comes to social. Right, the fidelity sometimes is obviously really low, right? Because you're on, you're streaming on a social media platform, and that's not really what you used to listen to the actual audio. But I just think like half of the experiences that we see on social wouldn't be as good without audio, So I think there's like a huge opportunity for new types of audio technologies to kind of come in, right, and take shape, right? If I were a brand, I'd be looking to do something on social with audio, right? Either something that's like an ad lib style, or like, enhancing a song or remixing a song in real time. I'm not going to give away too much, but I would.
Yeah, TikTok sounds are the new jingle.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, team. One last question for this crew, and then we'll switch it over to a Q&A. But for all, let's future forecast. It is Q4 2023. All brands have 2024 planning on top of their minds, are in full swing. What emerging technology will create the biggest wave of change in social media for brands?
I guess I'll start since I was the one that spoke last, and then I'll hand it off to whomever. I mean, just to kind of go back on what I said, I'm really bullish on AI. And when we talk about AI, like everyone just says AI. AI is a very large term. It encompasses a lot of different technologies, right? Such as NLP, natural language processing, right? Which allows you to feed unstructured text or audio into the computer, and for it to parse that audio or that text and deduce like what you mean, right? When you're speaking about something, like, are you speaking about Apple the fruit or Apple the company, for instance, right? So NLP extracts context from what you're saying. So NLP has been around for a long time. That's part of AI. Machine learning, I think, is when a lot of people talk about AI these days, they're inherently referring to machine learning, which is a fantastic field of computer science, right? I think of all of them, machine learning is probably the hottest piece right now that everyone's excited about. But also computer vision, right? Computer vision is really the ability for your camera to look at something in the real world and figure out what it is, and it's really interesting what Gianna mentioned. Like, if I'm holding a bottle of water and I could scan that with my phone and it recognizes what it is, and then there's a 3D model of it on spatial. Could you imagine the cool things that we could do just by having computer vision interact with something in the real world and then kicking that off to something on social, where it's like, oh, we already have this in 3D, right? We have this bottle in 3D, and you could do all kinds of crazy things with it, like have it explode, for instance, right? And put it back together in real time. So crazy stuff like that. So AI in general, but computer vision, machine learning, and NLP are three things that I think are going to be game changers in the next 6 months. Gianna's nodding her head, so I think she has something.
We are like, I love the technologists here. Yeah, it's funny. I really, I really vibe with what Nina had to say and Lawrence had to say. Before I got into the XR space and technology space, I spent about a decade in live event production and then another decade in shopper marketing at Omnicom, working on brand marketing. And I think a lot of people in the crowd here, we have seen AR. We know what gaming is, right? Like, and actually, it just wasn't that good at that time, right? It just wasn't where it was. And you might have a moment where I agree with Nina said. She said it probably feels so overwhelming. All of these technologies. It's like, do I set up an AR game for my brand? Am I going to start using AI? How do I even use AI? The best thing you can do as a brand right now is start to just test and learn slowly. And let me just give you guys a secret here. I like Nina, I remember when the internet just started, a lot of times I suggested things that people were like, no way, what is this? And over the years, one of the best things you can do as a brand, whether you're interested in AI or you just want to understand how to pump up your social media, is the creators right now are so young, and the gaming creators, for instance, on TikTok, these like younger generations have millions of views. They crack the code. They know how to create content that attracts their audience. So, I believe the word authentic came up quite a few times here. The first thing I encourage you to do is start to engage and realize that the path to technology and the path to translating your brand into the future sometimes needs younger voices who understand these emerging audiences as well, and get in touch with those creators who know how to create the content for the Gen Y audience, the gaming audiences. You want to get into come up with a really cool concept, start to diversify the talent on your team. And I think diversity on your team, especially embracing the creators who are doing extremely well on these channels, can supercharge the ideas and make sure that your message as a brand really hits. The other thing is AI opens a new door for you in how you start to interact globally. We talked about it, on the panel. Adaptation, your message, there's so many vendors who are like adapting content. AI helps you connect with audiences all over the world. It's one of the best tools I've seen out of AI is being able to change languages. And you might be using social media and your brand. How am I going to translate this, to speak to audiences globally and not come off inauthentic in that speech? So take Lawrence's advice, those AI models on language will really help you stretch your message as a brand. And the last thing is, I've spoken about it a couple of different times, but your product can do but so much in 2D. And when you think about social media, how do you start to really bring that product to life? And social media for you is the first place where you're speaking about your product. You're engaging with your audiences, you're creating content, but it's so much more than video right now. If you're leaving them locked into those platforms, your consumers are spending a very limited time with you. So it's not just about your social media channel, it's how do I get them to jump out of social media immediately after and keep engaging with my brand. So start to look at holistic solutions, be authentic. I say diversify your talent pool within your teams and get these experts to start coming in and working with you on your strategies. And then please, think about how can I take my product and get it ready for the modern web now? And then you can start testing the AR games, and maybe you need CGI videos, but take a moment and really just go out there and explore. And it's okay if you have something that fails. It's easy to start with just an ad on social media and gauge the performance. But right now, it's all about speed and responsiveness. So as you're testing and learning, you want to have that speed to say, okay, I'm testing and learning, but I'm being responsive. I'm looking at that data and I'm seeing what works with my audience. So I think there's a lot of great experts here, and I really want to throw the mic to Nina, who really lands it on authenticity. But I hope those things help empower your decisions in the future.
Oh, thanks. I agree on everything. I think the one thing I would just, end with, which is like, I'm going to keep repeating, which is, generative AI. This is your partner. This is your ultimate infinite, like endless brainstorm, but spend the time with what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you are, be authentic, and make sure that you know your exact vision. Then you're going to get the best results, is knowing exactly what you're trying to accomplish and to who. So know your brand first and foremost, and have fun. It is fun at the end of the day. And it's overwhelming, but it is fun. And just start trying. And I think it'll be great.
I think fun is
Awesome.
a big one. Like if we're not having fun or your team is not having fun, then your consumers are not having fun. So
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Well, I know we're getting to the end of our panel and just want to save some space for some questions from our viewers. So want to open it up to question. Reminder, if you have any, please just drop them in the chat. We have a few that we'll get to. And then, yeah, Lawrence, Gianna, Nina, we have a question. Would love to hear how the panel thinks about meta advertising audiences for apparel brands. How are brands balancing reach, scale, and targeting? Is meta reaching a KPI you are focused on?
So that's a very focused question around meta itself and apparel, which I don't have much experience in apparel. I'm not sure if anyone else has, but I don't think I'm the best qualified to answer that. But I will say this. Meta is, I would pay very close attention to everything that Meta is doing over the next 6 to 9 months. They released Llama 2, which is an open source AI model, and which is very different from OpenAI, which is a closed LLM. It's a closed model. So I think over the next few quarters, if you pay really close attention to what Meta is going to be doing with Llama and all their other technologies that they have, I think it won't be long until they actually make the technology, the thing that you're asking about. I think that's going to be influenced or supercharged by AI in the future. But if you don't mind repeating the question, just for the benefit of everyone else, just to stay on track.
So the question was, would love to hear how the panel thinks about meta advertising audiences for apparel brands. How are brands balancing reach, scale, and targeting? And is meta reach a KPI you are focused on?
I mean, my only thing would add in that is, without having that, specific experience, is just if you're consumer obsessed and following what the consumer is doing, I would focus more on influence of what you're doing, especially with apparel, which is a really, finicky, judgy world. So I would be more cautionary about like quality of what you're doing and what the influence is and what your consumers, like, are they on there? What are they doing versus big numbers?
I can answer a bit here because we do work on interactive ads, especially at 3DM. So our clients are, the LVMH portfolio, really work a lot with Fendi and Bulgari and such. When it comes to fashion and apparel, I will tell you, we invest more in Google display just because there's a lot more flexibility in those ads. I do always keep a close eye on Meta, but it depends what kind of retail and apparel you're really advertising. And also there's a lot of limitations on what you can do within their ads. It's mainly video. I mean, if it's okay, can I share a screen really quickly? And see if you give me hosting access. Meta is highly effective, right? But for certain generations and certain audiences, where Google, I think, is a lot more effective is how much and how robust. I'm just going to share this really quickly and just show you kind of what you can do. And when you put your spend kind of in Google, and I know that's kind of like, can I? But like, you can have fully interactive ads now in your, in your Google display ads. And when I say fully interactive, I mean, I'm turning the product, I'm adding product tags, I'm adding video tags to it, and I'm leading to my e-commerce site. So I know we think a lot about Meta's ads, but I really want you to stretch the imagination to kind of combat ad blindness. And this is the kind of work that we're doing at 3DM to kind of, whether it's fashion, apparel, electronic, really telling a story within your ads and letting your consumers engage with your product right within that display ad. And I'll just kind of leave it there.
How
think
do I
I
see
also
one of
saw
those
Jared
ads?
Leto
Like,
in that.
yeah, I actually want to play with that. Yes,
You know
serve me
what's
that
so
ad,
funny? It's
please.
like our highest grossing product is the display ads, because most brands are like, well, where do I start? Right. And it's like, well, let's just measure success on your ads first. Right. And let's see what engagement looks like when it's not just a 2D ad. And I think that's kind of when we think about Meta, or just display ads in general. It's like, well, how can I supercharge that and help my, my click-through rates? I'll send you some, Lawrence.
Yeah, I'll spend that $400 on that bottle of Gucci perfume.
Perfect. Sold in just this panel alone. All right. We have time, I think, for one more. So crew, our last question is, how can smaller brands, businesses adapt these new technologies that can sometimes be costly into their social media strategies?
So I think one thing, and I hate to use AI once again, like we're beating this dead horse and we're beating it again. But there are some technologies that are out there, such as I'll drop 3 of them in here. I came prepared because I knew someone would ask this question. There's one technology called Domino.ai. So Domino.ai allows you to start using an LLM, a large language model, because running an LLM is very very resource intensive, right? So it costs a lot of there's a lot of processing power that goes into training your own AI model. So Domino is a company that you could use. It's cloud-based. It really democratizes access to an LLM. Unstructured.io is another one. Again, that's unstructured.io. And they are a smaller player, but they allow you to feed in like, structured text. So something from like a PDF or a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet, and then you could actually run analysis on that, right? So if FP&A is your thing, you could start sending in a bunch of financial statements into this AI model and start deducing, like start looking for trends, start looking at, things that you wouldn't normally see. Or if you're Verizon, for instance, you could start, looking at consumers' bills, right? And you might see that there's a charge on there that people are like, what is this $2.99 New York State charge, right? You could learn a lot of things just by feeding your data into something like unstructured.io. And the third one is Algolia. So Algolia is a really good resource for these types of things where it's like, I'm a small brand. I want to get into AI, but I don't know where to start. They have a really good blog. There's tons of examples on there, and they'll be able to point you in the direction of like, check these guys out. Look at these guys, because everything comes at a different price point. And I'm a fan of like, try before I buy. So I'm going to sign up for 3 things, and I'm going to try all 3 of them out, and then make a decision on in 30 days, which one do I want to proceed with. So those are
And
the things.
also just to add in from an industry that has never had any money, at least they didn't work with it. It's really about like what the creative is. Sometimes the most lo-fi creative is the most impactful. So it depends on what your mission is for the brand. But also there may be a way for you to partner with another, whether it's another industry or an artist or somebody else, so you can combine, budgets and exposure. So there's a few ways to do it, but again, the shinier doesn't always mean it's going to be more impactful. So think about what you want to accomplish.
Cost savings. I'm a huge fan of being efficient, right? And so with social media, or you just get your creative teams to maybe be more efficient. I think we're all just looking at how can we keep great people on our team and embrace great creativity, but also just like make our production costs a little lower. I personally use a lot of Adobe Firefly, which is a really good, just like a great AI tool if you just want to have some like generative fill in into your images, right? It'll like help you build out like great, you already have the content, right? It has that human touch, but maybe you just need to fill in the image or enhance it a little bit more. Definitely download that. It's a lot of help. If you want to build a game, sorry to show, but like, at Spatial, you can really take your time in building games and be able to start to test and learn. Especially the gaming space can be kind of scary. So it's at Spatial, we really specialize in episodic gaming, right? Like building it piece by piece. And then, really like take a moment. And if you really want to cut costs, again, I feel like a QVC lady right now, just like shilling things. But at 3DM, like we really believe in optimizing pipelines. And we really believe that once you have that 3D product, you can use it across so many channels. And we see our clients just like cut 10 to 20% on their budgets, just like having a digital product that they're scaling to like their vendors, their agencies, their content, their e-commerce. And when you get that Unreal Engine quality, your consumers, can't really see the difference. So huge fan of AI when it has a human touch. And then, call us and we'll help you out, especially on this journey. I'll drop my information there. Lawrence, I hope you drop yours because you're absolute superstars. And we're just so grateful to be able to help and empower the people on this call.
Amazing. And then Lawrence, thank you so much for dropping the links. So viewers, any of the links that Lawrence provided, the tools and websites, please check out the chat and grab those before we close. And speaking of Lawrence, Nina, Gianna, thank you so much for the brilliant discussion today. And viewers, thank you for taking the time to listen into our panel. We are going to go ahead and wrap, and I hope everybody has a lovely day. And thanks again, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. I'm putting my info too.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Everyone should call Lindsay and they will help you with your digital strategies. Thank you, team, for pulling this together. You're absolutely brilliant at all you do.
See y'all. Bye.
Thank you.